Good evening and welcome to the Chrissy B Show. Now, do you think that Britain is a miserable place? Do you think people are quite moody here? Do you think it maybe have something to do with the weather, or is it the financial climate? I'd really like to get your take on this, because tonight's programme is titled Miserable Britain, because other people do tend to look at us and think we're a bit down in the dumps sometimes. But I would love to get your opinion. Do you think the UK is a miserable place? Do you think it's a funny place? Do you think this is a place where people want to come and visit, or do they find us a bit moody sometimes? Do give us a call on 020 7686 6300. I have some lovely guests tonight. We've got counsellor Andy Bernhardt back, and also medical nutritionist Babi Chana, who's also back for the second time as well. And we also have the self-development clinic with Chris Brown later on. And as always, we have the lovely Lisa Marie to read your emails and also to tell us what's happening in the celeb world. So let's talk to Lisa first. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Chrissy.
Miserable Britain, or do you think it's...
I think it depends. I mean, myself, I am a northerner, and I think that is true that things are friendlier up north. I mean, when I've taken friends from London to go to Manchester, they have noticed the difference. So, but I think sometimes it can be that in London, it's just so busy. I've noticed that. So when you go on holiday, and like last year I went to the Caribbean, and you know, you just, as soon as you get on the island, you get used to that walking slowly, you know, taking your time.
But it's because of the sunshine, isn't it? It just makes you sort of want to take it all in and not rush
but they
around.
still have to work as well and do their go about their business. But there's a more relaxed feel about it. But the minute you get back into Gatwick or Heathrow, it's like straight. Where's the escalator? Get here, get there to the tube. You just instantly go straight back into it. So
I mean, I was on the tube today, and I was with a friend, and I was just looking around, and I was saying to her, everyone looks so miserable, because they really did. They really looked down.
The thing is, the current financial climate doesn't exactly help, and obviously the new budget has just come out recently, and people are thinking that, you know, they were hoping for something, you know, a little bit more, maybe like the fuel wasn't cut, it stayed the same, but there's a lot of people, you know, who were counting on certain things to happen that didn't. So for some people it's like, oh, I can't see any way out of it.
Oh gosh. Well, let's see what the people had to say as well, because we went out and asked the general public what they thought about Britain, if it's a miserable place, and let's see what they said.
So today we've come down to central London, and it's quite rainy, miserable and grey, so we thought we'd try and cheer people up.
By smiling. I'm trying to brighten up Britain.
What do you think about Britain? Do you find it quite a miserable place?
I think it's been quite fun so far, and the rain doesn't really bother us. We just came here to shop.
It's nice and cool here.
But the people walking around, do you see them as, are they friendly, or what was your first take on Britain?
Friendly, businesslike, like New York.
Do you think it's quite miserable today in London?
Oh yeah, of course. It's not very nice, I don't like it.
What do you do to try and keep your spirits up when it's rainy like this and grey?
Well, I'm not from London, so just being here makes me happy anyway.
If everybody are smiling, it really makes the day much, much brighter, even in a day like that.
Brighten the day up. Have a lovely day.
How do you think we can put the smile back on their face?
I don't know, maybe a little bit of sun, a little bit of free concerts organised here and there, and then everyone will be happy. That's what makes me happy.
I think it's the same everywhere, really. I mean, back home, everyone's just the same. But yeah, I think down here people are generally a lot happier.
Well, I'm gonna go shopping now. I'm gonna get some stuff. That makes me happy.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, in a place like London, when it's the weather, you can't really rely on the weather. Might as well just go shopping and have some good food.
They're supposed to be working and they're out dancing around there. I'm going to get them back anyway. So most people don't think Britain's that miserable, but maybe they're trying to hide behind shopping and stuff.
Well, I think shopping is all, well, for me, I know personally, you know, a nice pair of heels can always make the day a little bit brighter. So, you know, I can agree with that.
Right, and how about the celeb world, you say?
Well, I mean, a lot of people tend to equate that if you've got money, then you really should be happy. But obviously we can see there's a trend that that's not always the case for the celebs. I mean, one big example of that is Amy Winehouse. I mean, she had worldwide success. She was lauded from so many different critics, you know. She has so much acclaim, Grammy Award winner, so many people wanted to work with her, and she had it all. I mean, she started at the Brit School and kind of like worked her way up, and obviously when it came to her worldwide smash, Rehab, and then from that everything just exploded. But for her, that wasn't enough. I mean, she got caught up obviously in the bad side of the music industry, drugs, alcohol, and despite numerous trips to rehab, family intervention, friends trying to help her, I mean, she eventually died in July 2011. So it's a big example there of just because you have all this acclaim, all this fame, all this money, all this talent, it doesn't actually mean that you're necessarily happy. Another example, one of our national treasures, Britain's national treasures, Frank Bruno. You know, his laugh is as famous as his boxing career, and his catches phrase, you know what I mean, Ari, and all that.
Can you do the laugh? Okay, it's just like that.
But you know, he seemed to have it all. I mean, as well, he world heavyweight champion, you know, massive title bouts and all this kind of thing. But he actually suffered. He was diagnosed with bipolar.
Really?
A few years ago.
About that.
He
I
was
don't read the papers much, actually, to be honest. But
he was first sectioned in 2003, and this was after a marriage breakdown, obviously the end of his career, and then quite more recently, in April and in May last year. And that is, even though he's managed to kind of build his life now, he's got he's in a stable relationship. I think he's got a young child, but it still shows that these kind of things affect everybody. Just because you have fame, you're not immune from things like bipolar disease. I mean, even Catherine Zeta-Jones was one quite recently who came out to say that she also suffered from the same thing, but controlled by medication. And I have one more, Kelly Osbourne. She, you know, come from a very successful family, living life in the limelight, and obviously from watching what her dad went through and her mum went through, you'd think that would kind of, you know, stop her from going down that same path. But obviously the pressures of it can obviously have that reverse effect, whereas you may think that just because she's got all the money, all the fame, all the fancy friends and everything like that, she should be okay. But she had very famous drug addiction to like Vicodin and stuff like that, and alcohol from a very young age, and also battled her weight problems in the full view of the media. And even more recently, she's actually been possibly diagnosed with epilepsy because she's had a few seizures as well. So it just goes to show that, and even now she's managed to like kind of turn her life around. She's obviously a very successful presenter on Fashion Police in America, and does quite a lot of like red carpet events and stuff like that. But it can happen to anybody.
Is she really happy now? Because she might be sort of successful, because that's what people think. If I have this, if I have a bit more of this, if I have a bit more of that, if I reach this position in my workplace, then I'll be happy. But it's like that's not the core of happiness, is it?
No, because well, for them, you can't just build up all the material things without actually sorting and let it cover what's actually going on inside.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, we're going to be hearing from our counsellor very soon, aren't we, Andy? How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Welcome back to the show.
It's great to be back.
You're gracing us with your presence again. So what do you think about what the people said on the interviews there?
Well, I'm intrigued because of the difference between the question and their response. The questions seem to almost assume that we're miserable. And my observation of the British is they're not.
But why do they complain so much?
Well, we like to moan, but underneath
why?
it all, I think we have a very dry sense of humour. I think we're the only country in the world that have almost as our theme song, always look on the bright side of life. And I think that's...
Have a cup of tea.
Yeah, and we have, and the fans play that song at football match, sing it when their team's losing 5-0. There's a kind of undercutting humour. But there's a surface to us which can seem, I think, to maybe, particularly to Americans or people from Latin countries, we can look a bit downbeat sometimes. We don't have that initial exuberance. But I think
do you think it's because people? Because if you just observe people just walking down London, down the street, they just look they look probably sad and miserable because they are constant. They've got so many things in their head, and it might look like they're sad, but maybe it's just they're thinking about a lot of things. Because you saw there on the video when Barbara and Bianca would sort of smile and say hello, automatically you get that smile back. So maybe they're just so wrapped up in their own world and what they've got to do that day. It could just be that.
Maybe just be a city thing. I think that one of the guys there, the American man, he said, he thought people were businesslike in their expression. And it made me think of Harrison Ford, the actor. He said he didn't like, he wasn't that keen on the British or wasn't keen on London, he said, because when he looked around, he said, everyone looked so miserable. And when I went to Russia, I've been to Russia several times now to do some teaching out there, and when I was talking to my interpreter and said, can you spot people from Britain on the streets of St. Petersburg? And she said, yes. She said, they always look so free and so happy in their face. Oh. And so they can see our happy side, but the Americans see us as being slightly more downbeat. So.
Actually, I was speaking to our makeup artist just before the show. She's from Poland, and she said, if you think the British are miserable, you should go to Poland. Because she said they're really like in banks and stuff, they're quite moody, and they're just like...
Well, so it's the same in Russia. My first impression of Russia was everyone was quite dour and quite stony-faced. That's just their presentation. If you sit and talk to them, particularly if you share a few vodkas with them, they're very funny people. They've got
probably anyone would be after a few vodkas, Andy. Right?
Yeah, even me. But they're a funny bunch, and I think the British have that kind of persona as quite downbeat. But I think as a generality, as a sweeping generality, that we're not a miserable people inside. I think we have a lot to contend with, particularly with the weather. I think we're quite a humorous bunch.
I'd like to hear what our viewers have to say as well. So if you do want to give us a call, we're going to go to a quick break. You can call us on 020 7686 6300. Do you think the Brits are miserable old sods, or do you think they're friendly? And I won't say they're very friendly though. Maybe we're going to talk more about this, Andy. Let's have a look compared to some other places.
Okay.
But let us know what you think. Join us after this.
Okay.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
So is Britain really miserable, or is it just not true? Give me a call on 020 7686 6300. Now obviously the weather's been, I'm not going to say terrible, because it's just been raining and it's just been snowing and it's just been a bit grey, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad weather, right? That's the way I'm trying to look at it.
You're kidding yourself. You're kidding yourself. It's been terrible. All my friends been saying.
But isn't it the way we look at it though? Because some people like rain.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know, I've been in the park where it's been beautiful, beautiful blue sky and really crisp, and people come up to me and say, "Oh, it's so cold," and I've been thinking, "This is wonderful," you know. But recently, I found my friends saying, "Isn't the weather getting you down?" And my response was no, because as I said during the break, I've just come back from Russia where it was deep snow, and I thought, this is fine. But on Saturday, I went for a walk on the heath and it was snowy, and on Sunday it was damp, and I finally cracked and thought, I've had enough. I've really had enough of this. So, yeah, I think we do have a lot to contend with in Britain. I think the reason why we bang on about the weather, because there's so much of it. We get so much weather here.
But then I'm not being funny or anything, but when it's warm and it's lovely, you still get people moaning, "Oh, isn't it hot? Oh, it's too much. Oh, it's too stuffy." And you just can't win.
I know. But I do think moods lift under a blue sky. I do think there's something about a blue sky which brings out the best in people. And even when it's cold, people seem to be cheerful under a blue sky. And I know there is some, and maybe Babi will refer to this later, but I know there's some kind of medical evidence about the role of vitamin D and all that, but there's something mood lifting about sunshine. I know in the research in Nordic countries, there's a very rough, very low correlation between the lack of sunlight in Nordic countries and the high rates of depression and low mood. So there seems to be an established link there, but not for everybody.
Well, I have to say, when I suffered from depression, the weather really used to get me down, really used to get me down. And I think if you've already got some kind of issue or mental health issue, then obviously the weather, I think, will make it even worse. But then since I've not been depressed, the weather doesn't get me down. I'm happy whatever the weather. Obviously, I prefer the sunshine. I prefer, because you can do more, you can go out more and stuff like that. But it won't get me down anymore. I'm still happy inside.
There's a truth there in not just the weather. If you have a depression or a low mood, what will happen is anything which is vaguely an obstacle in your path or isn't good gets magnified. So you could have a day, you know, where you drop a favourite vase, and if you're in a good mood, you go, oh, I've got to get another one. You know, you get a bit annoyed, but you don't get down about it. But when you're depressed, it feels like a disaster. And when people see me as a counsellor, and they come to me, sometimes they'll tell me about some small event, and I can tell from the way they're describing it, they think it's huge, and they've just lost the perspective on it. I think that's true when we get depressed and it's grey weather. That's just too much. It's just too much.
Well, let's see something else that the Brits are renowned for. Let's take a look at this video.
Well, I must say, I've never been here before, and it looks stunning.
It's okay. It gets busy, crowded, noisy.
And this weather just gets me down, I have to say. It's just raining all the time, and it's not just raining, it's snowing, it's cold.
It's because she's pretty. That's right. Yeah.
She's not that pretty. I mean, like, she's got really big thighs.
And there's damp in the bathroom as well, and it's just all over the walls. It's disgusting. It's quite refreshing being in central London. I don't often get to.
Yeah, well, you get used to it, really. It's crowded, smelly, hard to get anywhere, tourists.
And I've tried to ask my mum and dad for money, but they haven't got any, so they can't really give me anything.
So you came on public transport?
I did, yeah.
Oh.
I just came from Crouch End.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll just come round the corner and I arrange it to be this near because I can't stand public transport.
There's a leak in the roof.
Oh, not again. Didn't we get that fixed last week?
I know. It's just those roofers, you just can't count on them.
I'm going to have a word with the landlord again. This is getting ridiculous.
I know.
But I keep taking time off work. Things are tight enough as it is.
I took 3 days writing that report for him.
Yeah.
I gave it to him yesterday,
Yeah.
and he was like, it's too long.
Oh.
I play the piano.
Oh.
That's something I like to do on my own.
So do you think they'll be long with our drinks? I mean, it seems to be taking ages, doesn't it?
You didn't say there's
Well,
a
basically
limit.
what he means is you work too hard and he's going to shoot you for it.
To be honest, I'm not sure the children want to spend any time with us at the moment. Doesn't seem like they're that interested in their parents.
And did you go for that internal promotion?
Oh, didn't we? Only about 30 of us went for it.
We knew he wanted already, didn't we?
Yeah.
It's so annoying. These people keep moaning all the time. Do you know, it's...
What's she moaning about now?
Oh, I don't know, like some visa stuff. I don't know.
Why is everybody so moody all the time? It certainly makes me feel miserable, I can tell you.
No one likes to be around negative people, do they? I mean, come on. You saw the two extremes there. Someone's trying to sort of be upbeat, the couple there. Someone's trying to be upbeat, and then everything the other person says is negative. They're always complaining about something. You just don't like being around negative people, but sometimes they don't realise that they're doing it. Like the last lady said, oh, you know, why does everyone complain all the time? I mean, she's just complaining the whole time.
Yeah,
you must come across that a lot in your counselling.
Before we came on the set, we were talking with Bobby, and we were talking about people we know as emotional vampires. You kind of you spend time with them, and what they do is they're so negative, so continuously negative, that at the end of the evening, you feel terrible and they feel great. They've just sucked all the energy out of you, you know, and you think, oh. Yeah. And as a counsellor, you occupy a different position there, because when someone comes in, there's a useful point in what I call a therapeutic moment. People just need to get something off their chest. And we have it with our friends, we beef about things and we exchange beefs with each other. And it's a kind of deal that you're allowed to beef a bit with each other, and the other person has to take it, and it's a fair exchange. But if someone comes in and say, after an hour or two, maybe 3 hours of counselling, they are still reiterating the same problems over and over again, then my job is to stop them and say, are you aware this is what you're doing? Because my guess is they're not aware of it, and they become immune to the fact that people are just switching off. No one, not even your best friend, has the capacity to listen to you moan for an hour.
Are they quite receptive when you draw their
they're
attention
normally
to that?
quite surprised that someone's told them that, and it's just like holding up a mirror and just say, you've spoken, I had it with someone recently where I said, do you realise you've spoken for 25 minutes with barely a pause, and said nothing positive about your own life? Is your life really that awful?
Wow.
And so that we then got into, how do you deal with that when someone really has this habit, it becomes habit, complaining just becomes a habit of speech. We then get into how can you then perceive bits of your life which are working really well, and they've forgotten to observe the bits of their life that are really working well. And the cliched phrase is counting your blessings. The Americans call it the attitude of gratitude, but there's a kind of behind these cliches, there's a real truth. If you lose sight of the things in your life that are working, you just become this kind of moaning machine. And what it does, it repels people. People stop listening. They just disengage. They don't want to know anymore.
And that's when things will get worse, because the person is there complaining and complaining. Okay, there may be a few bad things going on, but that's the time when you actually sit down and you think, how am I going to solve those problems if it's something that you can control?
Right.
But, you know, there are lots of things probably in your life that are going really well, and you just don't, because you don't give it much attention. Maybe you've got a great family, maybe you've got some great friends, maybe you've got a really good job, but because you're not happy with one area of your life, it's like it puts a down on everything else. And instead of those positive things sort of uplifting you and making you feel good about yourself, and maybe, okay, now I've got, you know, enough energy, strength to solve this situation, you let it sort of go the other way.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't help anyone. And then because you're moody and like you're complaining to everyone, that's when you start to affect the relationships around you, and it makes matters worse in other areas.
Yeah, it's quite destructive.
You've got more to moan about afterwards.
Yeah, it gets quite destructive, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your life does start to go wrong, and then you don't know why. And it's a sort of a very sort of basic exercise. I remember doing it with teenagers when I was working with them as probation officer. Teenagers would say to them, whose lives are in a terrible mess, would say, can you tell me 5 things about yourself that you like? And they would hesitate. If you said 5 things about yourself you don't like, they could rattle them off.
Yeah.
So we'd have to really work with them to look at their own behaviour, look at the things they did, which were right. They might only be like a good listener, or very kind to their younger brother, or have a good regard for their grandma, but would say,
but they're still good qualities.
That's great, they're great qualities, you've got those. And so getting people to focus on the positive isn't as easy as it first sounds, and it must avoid being glib and saying, just keep smiling, everything's okay. If something is wrong in someone's life, they might have a good reason for being miserable. Let them sound it out, but don't let them stay there. It becomes a problem when they get stuck in that mode and they don't want to move on, and they get used to rehearsing the same old poor me story. We call it the poor me story. They can come in with this, or we call it waving a wooden leg. I can't get on with my life because X is stopping me, or she's stopping me, or he's stopping me. And it's getting to look at the positives, and sometimes something as simple as, if someone's really stuck, I do it to myself sometimes. I do a list of 10 things in my life which are really going well, or I really value and think these are solid. And it's amazing when you read them back to yourself, think, wow, there's lots going on. And it's a very simple thing, but it's surprising that people don't do it at all, or they have to be led to it. And when they are led to it, they're quite surprised by how much in their life is positive.
And there's lots of things. I'm sure there are lots of things. So maybe that's a bit of homework for you guys at home. You can write down the things that are going well for you, good qualities about yourself, perhaps, things that, you know, that you appreciate around you. Or maybe you've let the negative, apparently negative things get to you so much that you don't appreciate the people around you anymore. But Andy, thank you so much for all your advice.
Pleasure.
And hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Okay. Yes.
And after the break, we're going to be joined by Babi, who's going to be telling us all about some mood-lifting foods as well. So join us after this.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back, everyone, and now we're going to talk about how nutrition can affect your mood, and we have the lovely Babi Chana back with us. Hello.
Hello.
You look lovely in yellow, by the way.
Thank you. Cheers us all up.
Yeah, I know. It's so nice and bright. It's
yeah,
true.
sunshine.
So do you think Britain's miserable? In
well,
your opinion?
Lisa was saying a few things about coming from north, and there is a lot of research that shows that there are many factors that contribute to depression, and SAD syndrome, seasonal affective disorder, occurs more in northern climates where you get lack of sunshine, and the shorter period of light in the day that enters through the eye makes neurochemicals, happy factors in our brain, but we produce less of them in the winter months. Right. And also our genetics will affect us, and we're born with that, we can't change it. So familial traits, where you were saying some people cope and other people don't, but our genes will influence how we all cope with everyday factors like we wake up in the morning, financial pressures, you know, personal problems. But what we need is a take-home message. And yes, nutrition does count. It does make an awful lot of difference. And the simple answer that we're going to illustrate here today as the take-home message is we must all eat more seafood. So if we zoom in on what we're talking about there, is that, I mean, when we talk about bones, if I was, for example, to ask you, what do our bones need?
Calcium.
So everyone knows we need calcium for our bones. Everyone knows we need iron for our blood.
Yeah.
And everyone emphasises protein to build our bodies. But what everybody doesn't know is the brain is made of fat. 60% of the brain is actually fat. But importantly, it's the crucial fats that we only get from seafood that build the structure and perform the functions of the brain.
So what kind of fish are we talking
oily
about?
Fish
Oily
in
fish,
particular, but all fish and all seafood will have these special fats. That's hence the old wives' tale, fish is good for the brain. So it's not rocket science, you know, there's a lot of research out there, so everything I'm saying is backed by researchers. For example, Professor Michael Crawford from Imperial College, and he looks at brain biochemistry and human nutrition, and they've looked at how the brain has developed, and he shows a remarkable slide where he shows the rhino with its enormous body has a brain the size of a walnut, whereas when a child is born, its head is nearly as big as its mother. So for our weight, humans are intelligent because of the size of our brains, and the brain is made of fish oil. So unfortunately, fats have had terribly bad press. Everyone is bombarded with the message, avoid fat like the plague. So what's going wrong despite the low-fat diets, no-fat diets?
Things are getting worse, really.
Well, obesity is still reaching epidemic proportions, so what's going wrong? And the answer lies is we must change our way of thinking. We must change, importantly, our way of eating, and that's what the professor is calling a paradigm shift. We are not designed to build big bodies by eating protein. We are designed to eating fish to build the structure and function of our brain. So let's home in on the good, the bad and the ugly fats. Okay, if we look at that.
I'm going to feel sad about some of the things. Go on.
So mostly what we're eating is we're turning our backs on eating fish. We're turning our backs on eating natural foods, and we're opting for processed foods that I call it fat but starving. They're all calories, but they're devoid of nourishment. So when we look at fat, this is number one lesson, the physics, okay? When we look at fat on animals, it's hard at room temperature. You can see that it's solid, okay? And then when we take oil, it's liquid at room temperature. We can pour it. And fish oil is so liquid, I'll pour it out, that fish do not freeze in -12 Arctic oceans. Their bodies have this very, very fluid oil so that it doesn't freeze. Now,
I never thought about that actually, that's so true.
The chemistry of why that happens is people know we know saturated fat, we know mono unsaturated fat, and we've heard of poly unsaturated fat. But what that means is if we're saturated, it means we're full. So if we all hold hands, we're full, we can't hold any more. But an unsaturated fat is structured, the chemistry of it's like that. So I can let go and hold more. Now these bonds are what makes the fluidity of the oil, and what you put in your mouth, whether it's solid, like the bacon, that clogs your arteries, that makes you fat, that piggy makes you fat, or whether you take in the fish oils that your brain needs. So these special polyunsaturated fats, they are like, if you think about it, your signal on your telephone. Think of those double bonds. So EPA and DHA is what you get in fish. P means 5, meaning penta, there's 5 of those bonds. DHA, hexa, means there's 6 of those bonds. So fish has 5 and 6 of those double bonds. No other food will give you EPA and DHA.
How much fish are we talking about? What should a person aim to eat?
Well, traditionally we're saying eat fish once or twice a week. But people really, we're not getting, these are omega-3s, we're not getting them in our diet because the shelf life of food means they've been removed. Because fish goes off, it goes rancid with heat, light and air. So they're removed out of our foods, especially in the supermarket shelves. So we must eat these oils in their fresh form. We can't heat them because that's when they go off. And that's why 95% of the population is not getting enough of these omega-3s in the diet. There has been more in the press about them, particularly with children, and mood, behaviour, learning ability. So learning ability, concentration, memory, children, they're called smart fats. Okay? But what we're seeing more and more research that hasn't quite come through, and this Professor Michael Crawford, who has looked at this in great detail, they're saying that after heart disease, the brain is going to be next. And Ed Miliband has said that it's costing the NHS £10 billion and mental illness is going to be the next biggest thing that we're faced with. And already researchers are saying it's costing more than heart disease and cancer put together.
Is there anything else apart from the fish that we could eat that would help the brain as well? Or is it just mainly the
well,
fish?
Fish is the only way we can get the EPA and DHA, the 5 and 6 double bonds. But flax is another omega-3, but not many people eat flax or fish. You see, that's why we're not getting in the diet. Nuts, seeds, all other oils of commerce, they contain the omega-6 and we've got enough of that. So we
what
can
about the olive oil? The olive oil.
That's something called omega-9 and it's got 1, it's a monounsaturated.
But that's good for you?
But all of those things we've got enough of in the diet. We don't have to worry. The take-home message is it's time for an oil change. We need to eat more either flax oil or fish oil. But the flax only has 3 of those double bonds and it's very difficult for the body to convert into what the brain needs is the particular fish and flax oil.
Okay. And what about energy in general? Would that help for that as well? Or are there other things that you would suggest?
Well, energy, I suppose, goes along a different sort of pathway. So we've looked at the physics and the chemistry of it. The biology then comes into, you know, how these fats occur, how they help the biology of our brain. So if you think what you eat, what you put either solid or liquid in your mouth, every single cell is enveloped by this membrane that's made of the fat that we've eaten. So if you've eaten the bad fats, the saturated fats, you've got no signal, there's no communication going on. Whereas if you've had the fish oil...
But it tastes so good, Babi.
Well, you've got the 5 double bonds, and that's why mood, behaviour, memory...
Does it balance out? Say, like, if you have a bit of bacon here and there, and then you have, like,
Actually,
some
unfortunately
salmon.
not, because these membranes, they're like doorways, how one cell communicates with the rest of the body. And if you've got saturated fats, those doorways don't open. Whereas if you've got the fish oils, the doorways do open, and the message gets across.
How about if maybe a person has been eating the bad fats for most of their life? Is it too late for them now to start eating?
But it can take a good year and a half, and you might need to then take the supplements.
That's not too bad though, a year and a half, is it? If you imagine sort of all those years of eating unhealthily and then like
I'm afraid, I don't know, I think, you know, it's a bit swings and roundabouts. You can never tell what an individual's been eating. But whereas, you know, hunter-gatherer man used to have 1-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to 3, we're now 40 times even higher in the omega-6, so it can
take... guys at home, but I'm definitely going to be buying more fish. I do eat quite a bit of salmon, actually. I do like fish, so I don't have red meat that much, but I will certainly be eating more. Babi, thank you so much. I've run out of time, I'm afraid. Was that useful?
Yes, I'm sitting
do you eat salmon?
I eat salmon, but I'm looking at the bacon too, I'm afraid. I imagine a bacon butty, but that's just me.
How about you, Lise?
Well, like you, I'm a fan of salmon, but yeah, I'm also a fan of the bacon as well.
Okay, well, we need to cut down on that. Actually, we need to stop. Babi's like, no, you need to cut it out completely. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. So after the break, we're going to have our self-development clinic with Chris Brown, and he's going to be letting us know what he thinks about the Brits as well. So join us after this.
Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back, and now we have Chris Brown with us with our self-development clinic.
Hi,
Chris.
how are we doing?
You're always a happy person, aren't you?
I'd say I'm quite happy, yeah. Not
Are you eating
many
fish?
things bother me. Do you know what? As you say, big time. My diet, there's a lot of fish, a lot of nuts, and that's what we said, flax as well,
Yeah.
seeds
Oh,
as
do you
well,
that?
all in
Yeah.
that as well, yeah, because I did a lot of reading up on that as well and looking after the health, making sure,
Okay.
you know, they say goes on longer, good for the heart, you know, so.
Yeah,
I'm
and
going
the
for
brain,
that.
the brain,
And the brain,
Yeah.
brain food, brain
Okay.
food. Brain food is good.
So what do you think about this topic then? Do you think the Brits are miserable yourself?
Do I think the Brits are miserable? I think that wherever you go, you're going to get it good, you're going to get it bad. But I think it's about you, how you reflect on it. I'll tell you something that happened today, talking about Brits being miserable. I had to go and deliver a course this morning, and it's something like 8:30 in the morning. I was meant to be there. And couldn't drive there because of traffic and all that, so I took London Transport. London Transport. Took
Wonderful
the bus.
service.
Took the train, took the bus, and when I got there, got stuck in traffic. I was on a bus waiting there, started panicking, heart rate going up, can't get there in time. And I said to this woman who was next to me, she had on a yellow uniform, lollipop lady, I said, do you know where so-and-so school is? And she said to me, well, she started sending me in another direction. I was about to get off the bus, and a woman sitting at the back of the bus turned around to me and she said, I know where it is, this, that, and the other. She said, my daughters used to go there. So what happened, automatically, I started calming down thinking, oh, it's great. Then she actually walked me across this big car park to the bus stop on the other side of the road, flagged down the bus for me, and the other way. And her, by the way, her name was Anne, so she's watching.
Aww.
Thank you, Anne. Right? And
You get a shout out.
yeah, she's not miserable. People can be miserable, but it's how you receive it and how you react to it at the end of the day. A lot of situations, think about it, we say miserable bitten, but there's a lot of things going on. Economy, you know, circumstance, situations, and most times we're talking about, I'm going to pick out some points now. I've got some points here. And number one point is fear. A lot of people are in a fearsome situation at this time, so it's going to reflect in that way. We're talking about some people have fear of aging. Some people have fear of losing their house, their job, being redundant, many areas, and they're not actually going to walk around smiling all the time now at this time. So there's a lot of fear going on in the atmosphere at the present moment with all that's going on, economy, you know?
Yeah.
It's pretty tight. So we hear this bombarded at news, we get a lot of negativity and what's going on, we think this is terrible. And we go around like that. It's funny because we was talking earlier on, that survey about North and South.
Yeah.
And all that. I actually stayed up there for about, I think it was about 2 years or so.
And how did you find it there?
Do you know something? The sense of humour, bubbliness, I thought was great, honestly. And I found that the more you get to the centre of somewhere where it's about money and economy and all that, there's more tension. So I don't know how that balances up with that survey, but from practical experience, that's what I actually reckon from that. Yeah, very great sense of humour, laugh. Everything seems to be fun in that sense, you know. Let's go back to this.
Okay.
Here's another one as well. Well, not nature, nurture. Nature versus nurture. And we were talking about it. It's funny because there was, what's his name? Stephen Covey does this book, you know, 7 Habits, and was having a little chat about it as well. And nature versus nurture. We're talking about nature like your genetics and nurture like your environment where you're actually brought up. And say nature versus nurture, sometimes there's a situation where we say, well, I was brought up in this area and it was like this and that's why I'm like that and that's why, and all these reasons why. Not saying it's not true, right? But at the end of the day, you do actually have a choice. And then you're talking about the nurture, you're talking about being brought by your parents or whatever environment, what you've been taught in these sort of areas. Sometimes we use excuses and say, I'm like this because, I'm miserable because of this, or this is what happened to me. You do have a choice. You do have a choice. You can follow that path and just go with the crowd that says it's because of this and because of that. Or you can have a strong mind and be pretty focused and get the right mindset and say, that's not the choice I'm going to make. That's what happened in that member of the family, or this is what happened in that area. But you don't have to.
Yeah, that's what makes a difference between people, is the way they look at things, because there's people from a terrible background and they stay stuck there, and their mentality is stuck in that kind of background. But there's others that say, okay, I was born, I didn't have a choice about where I was born or who my parents were, but I have a choice about my future. And they can change. They change things.
They can change it. They can change it. It's up to you. I mean, we're talking earlier on. You mentioned about what was it? The animal with the brain that's called a rhino and all that. We look at animals and they. Sorry, I didn't mean all that. Right. And we look at animals who can't do that. They can't change these areas. We've developed. We know what we can do. We got thinking brains. We can work it out. We can have a choice. And I think it's about time people start making a choice. You want to be miserable? You choose to be miserable. You want to make light of the situation, turn around, you can choose that as well. Yeah. Now, I'm going to just show you a little diagram. Actually, I'd like you to have a go with this.
Okay, well, can I do it in 5 minutes? That's
you can do it in less than 5 minutes.
All right, then.
All right, this one, if it comes up, this diagram, if we got it. Right, now, we're talking about here a circle of influence. What I'd like you to do, Chrissy, is to just draw 2 circles. One big one right round the page.
Okay.
Right, and just like the diagram on there, and one in the centre.
Looks more like an egg, but it's okay.
Yeah, and we call this like a circle of concern. So the outer one, the green one on there, have we got it up again? The green one that we've got on the outside is things that you cannot influence. It's a circle of concern. Put a circle of concern on there. And the one in the centre, right, is the things you can influence. Things that you can actually influence, that you can actually do something about, right? Now, and if anybody else is doing it at home, it'll be great if you're actually doing this as well. On this outside circle, if you can think of as many things that you can't influence, I'm going to throw up a few, and let's bring up the second one. Weather. You can't change the weather. Do you know, my brother-in-law always says that there's no such thing as poor weather or bad weather, but there's bad clothing. So there's a little bit behind there at the end of the day, our choices. Okay, so the weather. Any other thing that you think about personally that you think, well, I can't change this? The economy, job situation, job market, all that sort of area, right? Just about 3 of them, right? And then the centre one, things you can change. So think about here. If we thought about...
my weight.
There we go, keeping fit. How much you exercise, what you eat, as we was just saying, your moods as well. You can determine how you can do it. Now, that's just a small example of that, but you can write many in there. And if you really look back at it and you thought about it and you thought, well, look, I'm feeling pretty miserable. You've got to actually start taking control of your life. Look at the sentence and think, well, what are the things that I can actually take control of? These are the areas. Now, we just wrote down a few simple ones, but we can go on with quite a list and think, well, actually, I am quite empowered. I can do a lot. And there's the things that I can't do anything about on the outside. It's a circle of concern. Things you're concerned about that you're worried about all the time. You don't need to be worrying about those because there's nothing you can do about them. At the end of the day, we've got to live. And if we know where our power lies and the things we can control, we'll be less concerned about the things
There's less concentration on this stuff here that we can't influence anyway, and just home in on the things that we can influence.
And that helps your life move forward overall. Yeah, so it's a quite good little test to do.
That is actually. I think everyone should do this at home because as you're speaking, I'm actually thinking of other things. I'm thinking, oh yeah, it's true, I can influence this, I can influence that, and I started to write things down. That's very good. I think everyone should do it.
Yeah. I did it myself as well, and I found out, wow, well actually, that's quite good. Yeah. You know, I found many areas that I thought, well, got this under control. There's areas that I think, well, I need to do something about, that I put in the outside one, which I shouldn't have really, because I can do something about it,
so
you
know? Go inside.
So yeah, here we go. Okay, now, last thing I was going to talk about is something to smile for. Have a look at this, next time it comes up. We got something to smile for. Now, little statement here, something looked up. Now, it takes, and I think we've got on this before actually, I touched on it, it takes about 43 muscles to frown, right? 43 muscles to frown. Now, when you think about it, using all these muscles just to frown, and we say miserable, bitter, and so here we are, all these frowns going around, right? Like you said, sitting on the tube and frowning, worrying about this, worrying about that, right? It takes about, what is it? It only takes 17 to smile.
There you go.
Good reason?
Yes, definitely.
Good reason, right? So we're talking about a difference of what's that? 26? So think about it, everybody frowning and say, oh, you got the 26, you got the 26, and you got the 26, you know? So at the end of the day, we want to get rid of those 26 and have something to smile about.
And actually, smiling, there's been research to say that when you actually smile, it does actually create something in your brain that makes you feel good.
Yes, it does, it does.
So,
it does. Chemicals,
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, Chrissy.
Thank you for coming, and we'll see you again next time.
Yep, next Monday.
And just to say as well, you know, when I was depressed, I didn't really have any sort of outside problems that were influencing me. I had a good family, you know, I was getting along well with them. My health was good. If you were to look at my life, there wasn't anything maybe that caused me to be depressed, but I was still depressed. It didn't matter where I was or what I was doing. I could be in the most beautiful place, you know, lovely holidays that I had, and I was still feeling down. So if, for example, okay, we've talked about nutrition today, great, go ahead with that. If your mood's, you know, up and down, go for the nutrition part, you know, take Andy's advice as well, Chris's advice. But if there's something that you say, look, you're doing all of these things, but you still feel depressed and sad inside, and there's a root there somewhere. You've got to find out what's going on. Where's the root coming from? Why is this going on? Has anything happened? Did it just come out of the blue? And you need to deal with that. I had to deal with that because I tried sort of fix things on the outside and nothing worked until I dealt with the issue inside. So it's really, really important that if you are still feeling down, despite trying to do everything on the outside and with nutrition, everything like that, get some help, speak to someone, go for counselling. You can email me as well if you want me to help you out, because I've been through it, so I know what it feels like, and I know how desperate a person can feel when they're looking for help and they can't find it. Do email me, because I'd be really, really happy to help you. You can do so on chris@chrissybshow.tv. And also, if you want to find out more about the show, you can visit the website chrissybshow.tv. That's the right website, isn't it? Yes, it is. Okay, so that's it for now. Thank you to all my lovely guests tonight and all your advice. And we'll see you again next time on the Chrissy B Show. Bye-bye for now.
But yeah, nothing special really.
Okay, next question. All right then, so next one, yeah? One more. Okay.
Next question.
Okay. Yeah? When you finished?
Fair enough. Woo! Daniel, no, we've got like one more question.
Okay, so let's go and have a chat to them.
Let's go.
Find out the truth. That was stupid, I didn't need to do that.